Hello, how are you? Today I'm going to talk about what happens in our body when we add clove to our daily routine. Many people chew 2 cloves a day to get more benefits. I'm going to tell you why you should chew them and why this number has a scientific reason. You're going to love this video, so stay until the end because you won't want to miss it. Before we start, I want to ask you if you have the habit of regularly consuming any spices in your daily life. Which spice is it? Remember that spices can be cinnamon or even clove. It could be curry, pepper. I have a video here on the channel, actually a playlist, about healthy seasonings and spices where I talk about several of them. If you're interested, I'll leave it down below in the description. If you can, go ahead and like the video. It really helps me out here on the channel. And share this video with anyone who would like to know more about clove or is interested in these natural topics, natural medicine. Let's work together to spread this chain of kindness. When we think of clove, of course we think of its flavor, that aromatic quality. It's an amazing spice. But it's not just a spice. It's actually one of the most concentrated spices in terms of bioactive compounds found in nature. The main one is eugenol, which makes up about 70% to 90% of what's present in clove essential oil. So it is very concentrated in eugenol. But beyond that, it also contains flavonoids, tannins, gallic acid, and various phenolic compounds. And there's an impressive fact: clove is among the foods with the highest antioxidant capacity ever measured, even surpassing those berries that we know are super antioxidants, like blueberries, for example. But there's a very interesting point when we talk about clove, which is the issue of bioavailability. When we look at it, we can already notice. Clove is quite hard, so when you chew clove, you're able to break its structure and release more of that essential oil, which increases its absorption. Specifically, the absorption of these interesting bioactive compounds. That's why the idea is to chew the clove, or alternatively, to crush it in a mortar or in one of those grinders used for coffee, you know? A lot of people use that. But of course, in a simpler way, chewing ends up being something that's more accessible for many people. And precisely because of several effects, including local effects in the mouth, people often even prefer to chew the clove. Let's start talking about these beneficial effects. As I mentioned to you, many people like to chew cloves, and in fact, they say that when they started chewing cloves daily, their bad breath improved. And that makes perfect sense because when you chew the clove, that eugenol comes into direct contact with your mouth and produces some very interesting effects. First, it has an antibacterial action against the bacteria that are directly associated with bad breath. So it helps reduce the oral microbial load and stimulates salivation. We know that with increased salivation, you have better hydration of the mucosa, which also improves the issue of breath. And eugenol is so potent that it is still used today in dentistry, mainly in materials for pain relief. So look how interesting that is. But obviously, we have to make it clear here that chewing clove will not replace brushing, flossing, or regular visits to your dentist. It has a complementary and interesting effect, but obviously, oral hygiene and professional follow-up remain extremely important. Clove also has a very important effect on our digestive system. It can stimulate digestive enzymes, reduce gas, and improve gastric emptying. But there's a more modern aspect here, which is its impact on the gut microbiota. Clove, as I mentioned, has an interesting antimicrobial action, and it's a selective antimicrobial action. In other words, it helps reduce potentially harmful bacteria without eliminating the beneficial ones. So, it can contribute to a more balanced intestinal environment, and this obviously has an impact on digestion, metabolism, and even on intestinal inflammation. In addition, there are studies that have already proven that clove can have a gastroprotective effect, helping to produce the stomach's mucosa. So it can be something interesting, but if you have gastritis or gastric sensitivity, you'll need to evaluate it individually because while it has this gastroprotective effect for some people, for others, it can actually make the pain a bit worse. So it's the same thing as with vitamin C. We know that vitamin C has an antioxidant effect, which helps protect the mucosa, helps prevent the free radicals that are present, and can make things worse. But because it's acidic, it can worsen pain for some people. So whenever we talk about health conditions, we're speaking in general terms. If you have any questions, if you have this health condition, if you should or shouldn't use clove, how much to use, whether to chew it or not, talk to your nutritionist or your doctor in your city. And remember that this video is for informational purposes only. Another point that is not often discussed, but is quite interesting, is the role of eugenol, which is present in clove in liver health. This eugenol can help, in a complementary way, the liver to combat oxidative stress because it works by stimulating antioxidants such as superoxide dismutase and catalase, which protect our liver. So this can help reduce cellular damage in the liver, especially when we think about metabolic inflammation. But it's important to make it clear that this alone won't treat fatty liver, nor will it be a medicine or a free pass. It's not something that will let you stop worrying about your diet, lifestyle, or medication. As a complementary measure, it can help you. Chewing the 2 cloves can also generally have a beneficial effect on your blood sugar because there are studies showing that clove can help improve insulin sensitivity, reduce glucose spikes, and increase glucose uptake by our cells. And the mechanism involves action on metabolic enzymes and cellular signaling pathways. This effect does exist, but as I mentioned to you earlier about the liver, it's not a free pass, okay? Just because you're going to chew clove doesn't mean you can say, now I can have a tub of ice cream or eat a whole tray of lasagna. That's not the idea of this video. It's to say that as a complementary measure, it can help you. We also know about the role of clove in the respiratory system. These volatile compounds released when chewing clove help to thin out secretions, make expectoration easier, and even reduce irritation, including in the throat. So there's also this issue of bacterial selectivity, which can help. That's why it's commonly used, even since our grandmother's time, for coughs, colds. When someone has that mucus in their throat, many people start chewing clove, and many of them experience beneficial effects. It's worth making a note here. I've talked throughout the whole video about chewing 1 or 2 cloves during the day, the clove buds, because that's the safest way for us to consume it. Clove essential oil is extremely concentrated, and eugenol is very potent. When we consume it in excess, it can cause unwanted effects such as nausea, gastrointestinal irritation, and even liver toxicity at high doses. So the ideal is 1 to 2 cloves per day, more or less, and not to use clove pure oil separately, especially without the guidance of a nutritionist, herbalist, or doctor, because if it's consumed in very high doses, it can be toxic for us. Another important point is that clove can interfere with anticoagulants. So if you take any medication for blood clotting, or if you've ever had any issues with that, talk to your healthcare professional first. And if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, it's not a good idea consuming it on your own, without talking to the professional who is following your case. An interesting detail regarding clove consumption that we need to pay attention to is the timing of consumption, because ideally it should be early in the morning or at the start of the day. And also, preferably with a full stomach after a meal, after breakfast or lunch, because that way your stomach is better prepared and you're less likely to experience the sensitivity that can affect some people. Tell me down below, have you ever used clove? Have you ever chewed it? Do you drink clove tea, clove water, or do you chew the clove? How do you use it? Do you put it in your food or not? If this isn't part of your routine yet, are you going to give it a try? Remember to like the video, that really helps me, and share it with someone who will enjoy it or who needs it. Let's expand this chain of kindness. That's what I want here on the channel. See you next time. Bye.